Now that you know how a distributed public blockchain with proof of work functions and the problems that it solves, the obvious question is, what are the enterprise applications for this type of blockchain? One thing we know for sure, you're not going to implement a distributed public blockchain with proof of work natively on Salesforce. Mining cryptocurrency is a job for specialized hardware with many processors, not a platform optimized for general business computation where code is subject to CPU timeouts. Now, I'm not saying you can never use a public distributed blockchain with Salesforce. Salesforce supports many kinds of integration, so you absolutely can integrate a Salesforce org with external software that implements or participates in a blockchain. How you might do so is outside of the scope of this course, but why you might consider this is a good question. What are the enterprise applications for a distributed public blockchain? Well, let's think about the nature of a distributed blockchain. There's no central database, thus no need to trust someone with a central database. The ledger is immutable, so there's no need to trust other participants in the blockchain. The ledger is typically public, so you can trust that other participants in the blockchain aren't hiding any transactions, even if approaches may be used to hide some of the content of individual transactions. Now that's a lot of trust, and there's a temptation to think you might use a distributed blockchain anytime you need to establish trust. But that's not really the case. Distributed blockchains really shine when the ledger contains public data that is not owned or controlled by any one participant. The data is truly shared. It's for cases where no one participant can be trusted to be a repository for the data, even if it is a publicly accessible repository and uses a blockchain ledger. A classic example might be a supply chain, where a product is tracked from production to delivery, and product status can be tracked every step of the way. The manufacturer can see the product shipped and confirm delivery. Shippers can submit status and tracking information every step of the way. The finance company can loan the manufacturer funds against the invoice once the customer accepts the product. Insurance companies can pay claims if they see shipping damage. With blockchain, the participants in the supply chain don't have to trust each other. Every element of the product's journey is shared and transparent. And the ledger is immutable. Nobody can come back later and dispute any of the transactions once they are entered into the ledger. So far, so good. But what about scenarios that don't involve data that is shared equally among different organizations? Most enterprise data is not public. In fact, a great deal of enterprise data isn't even public within an organization. Financial data, sales data, customer interactions, these are just a few of the many types of data within an enterprise that are often confidential, yet are transactional and could benefit from an immutable ledger, but where a distributed public blockchain is a terrible idea. This kind of data is typically stored in centralized databases controlled by the enterprise. You can secure a central database and control who can add transactions. You already have identity and authentication in place that you can use to control access to the data. You can choose to expose selected data from your database to partners and even the public. But with that control over the data comes the trust question. It may be your data, but why would anyone trust that you haven't tampered with it? What if it were possible to combine the efficiency, control, and security of enterprise data with the trust that comes from a distributed public blockchain? Believe it or not, it is possible. The answer is a private blockchain, and that will be the subject of our next module. But before that, there is one more question to answer. If public blockchain technology is suitable only for a specific class of problems, mostly related to establishing trust in data that is shared by multiple individuals and organizations, why has everyone gone so crazy over the technology?